All right, we are back after a brief hiatus from the Boilermaker Breakdown on due to Thanksgiving break, some travel issues. Ethan was stranded in the Syracuse airport for I don't know how many hours, but a lot of them. But I digress. We are back now officially after a big Purdue win. They kind of shook off the rust a little bit, shook off the the Big Ten road opener jitters a little bit with a 81-65 win over Rutgers in what has kind of been known as the trapezoid of doom to Purdue fans over the last few years. Jersey Mike's Arena and Piscataway. Not a lot of doom for Purdue. This is a pretty relatively easy win. This is a 16-point win that felt like it was 25. That's because it was 25 for most of the game. And kind of, we talked about it a little bit before we hopped on, but a little business-like, maybe not the most efficient, but just kind of like a team that showed up, took care of business, knew they were capable of beating this team by 20 and had bigger things, kind of in mind, and we're okay with a 16-point win. So with that, I will kind of throw it to Ethan for his kind of brief general thoughts on this game.
Yeah, Trey Kaufman-Renn was asked after the game. I think maybe Casey Bartley was the one who asked. Like if he had like an extra edge this season he was approaching Big Ten games with because he didn't win it last year. Now this is his senior year. Like, does he want to win the league again? Is the team approaching this differently? And he gave a very Trey kind of response. He thought about it for a moment and was like, not really. He said he was so focused on winning the national championship that they're not really thinking about the Big Ten. And that's kind of how I felt. Rutgers is very bad, even on the road. This is a quad 3 game for Purdue, and they're buried pretty deep in quad 3 too. So unless Rutgers goes on some crazy run, it's probably not going to make a quad 2 game. The bottom of the Big Ten last year, Penn State, Washington, probably beats this Rutgers team by 12 on a neutral.
This Rutgers team is bad.
Very, very bad. They shot the ball well in this game, though. We'll talk about that in a second. But, 16 points, maybe not quite as dominant as you'd like to see from a number 1 overall team in a quad 3 game. But Purdue built this lead. And then they're just kind of content to ride it out. Guys ended up playing a lot. Braden played 35 minutes. I think, ideally Painter probably wants them to play, maybe 3 minutes less, get them out a little bit early in the second half. And Rutgers' shot making in the second half was good enough that they weren't ever able to really pull away to the 25 to 30 point range and really make this a non-competition. Rutgers was able to say just connected enough. It was like, well, 3 minutes left, we pull Braden and they hit 2 threes. All of a sudden it's a single digit game, So, it was sort of in that range, which is maybe not quite as comfortable a win as you want. But look, 16-point road wins in the Big Ten don't come every day. And like you said, this has been a house of horrors for Purdue. I mean, Penn State last year, awful team. Maybe not quite as bad as Rutgers team. Still very bad. And we lost that game by like 16 on the road.
It was like a 30-point game until CJ Cox came in and kind of did his thing that he did a couple times last year in garbage time, where he was very, very excellent at turning a 28-point deficit into like a 16-point deficit in like a 1 minute.
He was our metrics MVP for sure,
because nobody else's walk-ons could check him. But
right,
we'd get down 28 to Auburn, and then he'd come in and get it down to 16, and we all be like, "Thank you, CJ. That was very nice of you." But yeah, I think on the Braden minutes thing, I think you saw him come out for good at one point, and then you kind of saw a really rough Omer stretch of like 2 minutes where he had a couple turnovers, took probably an ill-advised shot, gave up a couple jumpers on the other end, and all of a sudden, as you said, it's like an 11-point game with 4 minutes left, and here comes Braden, and they get it back up to 20, and kind of that's where the game ended, it being a 16-point game. I wanted to start with the guards. I think this was this was a little bit of a Braden Smith game. Not entirely. It wasn't the biggest stat line for him, but nice to see some shots go in for him. It was kind of a rough patch there for a few games on the shooting splits, and he went 4 for 8 from 3, just 1 for 3 from 2-point range, but pretty efficient night overall. Had 8 assists to 3 turnovers, 3 rebounds. Not the highest impact Braden game we've seen, but nonetheless a pretty solid one. I think the shot making is something that Purdue fans will welcome back.
Yeah, I mean, 16 points and 11 shots. You really can't complain about that. He had it going early. Purdue built a very quick, like 10 to 12 point lead, and um, he was a big reason why. He just kept making threes. Yeah, guys weren't necessarily finishing a lot of his passes early on, and that kind of kept his assist numbers. I think he only had three at halftime. Um, but yeah, other than that, there's really not a lot to complain about. Three turnovers is maybe a little bit higher than you like in a game like this. I know one of them was on that lob past Jacobson that just kind of got away from him, but it didn't ever felt like he had any like truly egregious, really bad turnovers. Um,
I mean,
or
this is a Rutgers team too. That like Steve Pikiel's defenses are typically very good at forcing turnovers. Like 3 turnover game against a team that wants to force a lot of turnovers. I'm not gonna bat an eye at that personally.
I mean, Dylan Grant was really good in this game on defense. I thought so. I think he drew the Braden assignment for stretches and kind of used his length. And I mean, to his credit, Braden wasn't really phased by that. I mean, we saw some similar strategies that Memphis employed against him that really bothered him, and it probably helped that no one else on this Rutgers team could check someone like Trey Kaufman-Renn. And really, whenever Braden was in trouble, he just throw it into Trey, and Trey would finish it. I mean, speaking of Trey, he was the best player in this game: 19 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. 7 of 11 from the floor, 5-7 from the line. I mean, Trey was fantastic in this game, and this is maybe the first game we've seen in a while where both Braden and Trey were like on their A games. Really, didn't need a ton from either of them. I mean, kind of funny to say that when Trey Kaufman-Renn had 19 and 13 double double, but um, it just felt like a very business like workman like approach from both of them. Very quiet 19 from TKR. Never really felt like he was making loud plays or sort of like some of the runs would go on last year where it felt like every possession it's him making a play one-on-one or whatever. Like this was just in the flow of the offense. He got to his spots, got some offensive rebounds and some finishes off that. Really not much more to say about it, honestly.
Yeah, Ken Pom MVP. I mean, he just kind of did what Trey Kaufman-Renn does. I think it's crazy to say. It speaks to how good of a player he is, but it's almost kind of like he did what was expected of Trey Kaufman-Renn at this point. Like 13 rebounds are great. Obviously, that's a slightly outlier number, but with the uptick in rebounding, like I think it's here to stay. I think he's just kind of becoming a double digit rebounds guy. Like I think he's just becoming an awesome rebounder. And that's kind of why like the 19 felt quiet was partially because a couple of them came on some putbacks that like just inherently quiet buckets off of a miss. And he's the type of player that what he's turned into gives Purdue such a floor against a team like Rutgers. I mean, Rutgers just didn't have anybody for him. And typically, more often than not, most teams that have somebody for Trey Kaufman-Renn don't have someone for Braden. So I think those two just almost give this team such a high floor that like the Rutgers of the world just won't be able to keep up with the firepower this team has. You mentioned the loud plays. Like the two loudest plays he had were both passing plays. Like you had the short roll from Braden that he turned immediately into a lob to Jacobson. That was just like wow. Like that was the option that I think this offense was missing last year and is kind of the like next step in what they've really done well is Purdue just didn't really have a guy to finish off of those short rolls the way they have now. And now you can't really step up to Trey Kaufman-Renn on that short roll like you were able to last year because he'll just throw it over the top and both centers will certainly oblige in dunking the basketball off of that. The second one was another short roll into like a skip pass. Rutgers did a really good job of tagging Jacobson underneath the basket in the dunker spot, and TKR read it very well and skipped it to CJ Cox in the corner and ended up with an open three that went in. And those two plays were just kind of missing from Purdue last year, and I think we're just kind of like it was one of those things where it showed me the pursuit of this team and that they were able to take another step.
Yeah, I mean this team is so dangerous when Trey gets the ball in the short roll. Like he he gets to his spots. Um, and he's such a good finisher around the rim. His floater is money. I mean, it's almost as efficient as like an ED jump hook from a similar spot, right? Like you know that's going in 70% of the time, and when you know that, like guys have to respect that. They don't want to give him space, but if they try and play up on him, you're going to throw it down to Clough or Jacobson, who can finish, who are both great finishers around the rim. And if they manage to stop both of them, he's a great skip passer. He can get the ball to the corners, he can get the ball back out to the wings, and he can't defend everybody. Someone's going to be open. And whether that's a lob pass for a dunk, whether he's able to do a more traditional dump down to let Clough go into like a post move, whether, the guy comes, tries to help off Braden, like throw it back to the top of the key. Braden gets an open look. You got Fletcher and CJ or Chikari in the corners. Like, just a lot of options when Purdue's going to get the ball to Trey in the short roll. And Braden, he is very, very good at getting Trey the ball in those spots. Like, you got the best passing point guard in the country sitting, just waiting to feed you. And he really drags his plays out really nicely. He had a couple of moments like that where he's just letting the double come. They're hedging him high. He just kind of gives himself an extra dribble to let Trey come off that screen, get to a spot, and then feed it to him between. And it's a really, really efficient part of Purdue's offense that they weren't able to do as much of last year because the center spot just wasn't good to make the lob threat a real one.
Yeah, I agree. And then, kind of moving forward here, I know we talked a little bit about how this game was a little bit of a quiet one for Purdue standards. Weren't a ton of standouts. I had a couple more guys I wanted to get into, but the first main one was Jakari Harris. I feel like it'd be hard to get out of this recap without talking about Jakari. So we're not. This was, I think, the best game we've seen from Jakari probably since the exhibition season. He was really, really good tonight. He had 11 points. He was 4 for 5 from the field, 3 for 4 from three. Added 2 assists, 2 rebounds, no turnovers. He picked up a steal. That steal kind of turned into a full court. It ended up being a goaltend, but I thought that the layup would have gone in had it not been blocked. I was kind of impressed by that move. He's a change of pace. He's a player that I don't think Purdue has a second archetype of, and that's a guy who can really get to the basket. And when he's going, I think he's Purdue's real only threat to get to the rim. He had that steal and turned it into a really nice move where he bumped off the Rutgers defender into a more open finish. I think he's starting to turn a corner, and when the jumper goes down, it's like a different player emerges. And I hope this is just kind of more and more building on the confidence that he's already started building. I hope it just keeps growing because I think he could be a huge piece for Purdue down the stretch.
Yeah, he was spectacular in the first half. Didn't do a whole lot in the second half. I don't know if he took a shot even, but yeah, 11 points on 5 shots, 2 rebounds, and a steal. I mean, that's 21 minutes. I mean, he's doing everything you could ask and then some.
On
He's
a night when CJ and Omer went a combined what was it? 0 for 6 from 3. Like to
they were
have that
combined. They were 2 for 10
presence.
from floor. Fletcher was 3 for 11. Like outside
Like,
of Braden, Jakar was the only guard making shots.
exactly. And I like it's big. It's so big to have a fifth guy that you can turn to that's as good as Jakari is.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. He's the one who provides rim pressure. Like even when he was struggling, like he had this phenomenal spin move against Alabama, where he just got the ball on the wing and turned into an isolation scorer. He just drove right to the basket, spun around under, got right to the hoop. Now he, absolutely bricked the layup, but you know, no other guard on this team is making that kind of move and getting that type of shot in that situation. And if Jakari is going to have those kinds of moments more consistently, if he's just going to get out of his own head, get out of his own way, and finish the easy stuff around the rim, shoot a respectable percentage from three, he's probably never going to be a 40% guy over the course of a season. But if he can get above 35, kind of being that Lance Jones type of shot maker, and he's also not taking as many as Lance took when he was with Purdue. But if he can get to a similar percentage where, yeah, Lance isn't going to be the most efficient guy, but you had to respect him from three, and there were huge moments where he would just catch fire. I feel like Jakari can have a similar kind of role with this team, where if he just doesn't have it, he's missing his shots, play CJ more. But on a night like last night against Rutgers, where he's making his shots, he's the most disruptive defender. CJ might be the most consistent defender. I mean, we've seen him shut down some of the league's premier guards, but Jakari is the best steals guy on this team. He just gets his hands on so many passes, and really, when he gets out in transition, he's hard to stop.
Yeah, I agree. And then kind of moving on, I wanted to touch on one of his counterparts before we got out of here. Thought it was a quiet game from Omer, but I had one play in particular that kind of stood out to me. That was the one positive. He got to the rim, finished through
And
contact a little bit. I think that was kind of the big knock on him offensively coming into Purdue was the rim pressure aspect of it, especially since that was such a glaring need for this roster. And yeah, that was, I think, a welcome sign. He was able to kind of beat his guy off the dribble one on one, gets a step, gets to the rack, and it was not the prettiest layup or finish at the rim I've ever seen, and nor was it the most athletic. But he was able to finish through contact, went up high off the glass, and was able to get it to go through for an and one opportunity. I think it was a quiet Omer game. I don't think it was a particularly bad Omer game. I just don't think the shots fell, and that's kind of what happens. He only had one turnover, no assists, only played 13 minutes, and I think a large part of that was how well Braden was playing and how well Jakari played. Not a ton of minutes for him to go around. I thought you saw a lot of Jakari CJ lineups too, which
mm-hmm.
inherently limited Omer as well, just because of how Jakari was playing and kind of, I think also not only that, but how Rutgers wants to play. It's a very physical in your shorts kind of defensive style that I think doesn't hurt to have two, I say veterans, they're both sophomores, but have already played so much Big Ten basketball. They feel veteran-y, like two guys who've been there, done that, and experienced it. And I thought they responded pretty well. I think you're going to have games like this with Omer though, where it's just kind of he's just kind of there. He's a little non-existent. He's not really playing all that much, and you'll have that occasionally with some of the styles of the Big Ten. And I think that's where Jakari and CJ come into play very heavily.
Yeah, I mean, you have five guards in this team who are deserving of minutes, so inherently, they all can't have amazing games every week because there just aren't enough minutes to go around. Braden's going to play 35 most nights. Fletcher's going to be a little under 30, and that's going to leave you with a little under 30 minutes to split between the three other spots. And or my math was way off on that. A little under 60 to split between the three other spots. And so that you're going to have, CJ is going to play 20, Jakar is going to play 20, Omer's going to play 20. It's probably not going to shake out like that every night. Right. And in this game, Jakari had it going. CJ didn't have a huge scoring night, only had 6 points, but he had 5 rebounds. And, we know what kind of defender he's turned into. So you're not really, I don't think, ever going to see CJ under 20 minutes at this point. I think he's established himself as probably a 22 to 25 minutes per game most nights kind of guy. And if he's shooting well, he could get close to 30, which point there's just not a lot of time for other guys. And Omer was the short end of the stick in this one. He was a little bit inefficient shooting, looked a little uncomfortable running the offense against Rutgers defense. But he's a freshman. And with Jakari playing the way he did, we can afford to have that.
Yeah, that's the luxury of being as deep as Purdue is this year, and why it was so valuable to bring a guy like Omer in. Even on the nights that he's not having a night, that's oftentimes a CJ or a Jakari night. So it's a very good problem to have when your fifth guard that night is not playing to his ceiling, but you've got a couple other guys that are. So on that note, I don't really have anything else from this game. It's just kind of one of those business as usual for Purdue. So unless you've got something else,
No, I mean, shout out Liam Murphy. His only
homecoming
shot,
game.
homecoming game for him. Had a lot of family and friends in the stands, so it's good to see him. Sounds like Benter is dealing with a bit of a shoulder injury, so hopefully that won't knock him out too long. But I don't think the drop off between Benter to Murphy is significant.
Yeah, man,
So
that's such a pretty shot. I love watching Liam Murphy shoot.
it's really good. 3 rebounds and assist in this one. No turnovers, no fouls. 11 minutes.
On the Liam Murphy thing, I do think that not enough people have talked about his kind of upside as a rebounder and how big that is for some potential Liam Murphy, Trey Kaufman, Ren lineups, which we did see one of those last night, and I think I had a little bit of success. I really like the kind of potential for that in the future.
Yeah, I can kind of play 5 out with those guys. I mean, both Murphy and Benter have been much better rebounders than I expected. And obviously, whenever you take Clough or Trakeoff and Ren out of the game, you're going to have a dip in rebounding. But as long as those guys can hold their own on the glass and you don't immediately see, a bunch of offensive rebounds as soon as you take one of those guys out of the game, that's huge. And Murphy played very well in limited minutes in this one.
Yeah, for sure. On that note, we will close it out a little bit. We will be back soon with a preview for a big Iowa State matchup. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, always good to start out the Big Ten season 1-0. So on that note, thanks for listening, everyone.